So I'm here on the corner of 225th Street and Broadway, right under the number 1 train. And a number of people have asked me, how do you get to the South County Trailway? What are some of the routes, especially now that the old putt is closed and you don't want to go through that part of Yonkers. So this is my route, and it starts off unconventionally, which is that I go the wrong way on a one-way street. It's very short and there's very little traffic here. I've done this for years, but it gets me to Marble Hill Avenue. We're in Kingsbridge. Actually, technically, I think where I am is still Manhattan, even though we've crossed the water. Now we're in the Bronx. So there's that little piece of Manhattan. So we're going to ride through Kingsbridge. Marble Hill becomes Kingsbridge. There is a bike lane here. I saw a lot of cars parked there, but usually that's not the case. Kingsbridge has some of the most diverse housing stocks. It's old wooden houses you don't see too much anymore. I think there's only 2 or 3 wooden houses in Manhattan left that I can think of. And it's actually a nice neighborhood. Off to my left, it's Fort Charles. So you can, it's a couple of loops around this hill. This is the only part of the route I'm not crazy about, because you have a steep hill. And maybe it's my imagination, but the light appears to change. But more bothersome are the people who, hey! Who do that, and the cars that make abrupt rights. So we're going to stay straight. We'll keep an eye on who's turning, because those are sort of enemies. So generally, especially in this time of COVID, I tend to cheat my lights a little bit. Certainly here I'm going to sneak up a little bit and go. So now I'm on Kingsbridge. It's just a continuation of Marble Hill. And yes, there are occasional double parked cars, but it's really not too bad. There are bumps in the road further ahead, so people aren't speeding. And the reason I do this is my big alternative is Broadway. And when I take people for rides, I generally don't like Broadway. It's unpredictable. You have that little lane where people are always double parking. So I prefer not to take Broadway. Okay, we're at 232nd in Kingsbridge. You got it.
Awesome.
Always self-conscious when making these videos of cheating the lights, but as I said, these times traffic is just much less, and my general rule in lights is whether you have the light or not, you have to look. As a bicycle rider, that's kind of one of the first rules that you learn is don't trust the lights, trust your eyes. Trust your ears. Doesn't matter if you have the light. If somebody sails into you, you lose. So you won't find me blowing through green lights either. To get into trouble up here, we're about to hit our neighborhood police station. As once in a bike accident a few blocks away. Found this way incredibly unhelpful. But I love New York. There's a Rite Aid straight ahead. You'll be able to see in a minute. And that's a good place if you're going onto the South County Trailway. It's kind of like unless you really want to get off the Trailway, it's like the last good place to stop to fill up your bottles or get a bar or something like that. It's not really great places afterwards. Again, I'm cheating a little bit. Not as badly as those rebels going through the lights, but I am cheating. Now, 3 lanes ahead. The lane to my right is a turning lane. I'm not going to be turning, so I really want to be in the center lane. Hope everyone is turning. And here it's always a little tricky the way I choose to get into the park, but I kind of like this entrance. I've gotten used to it. So I sort of loop around here. There's a big stop sign. See the cars. And so it gets me in early. I get to enjoy the park. So now we're in Cortland Park. It's a great park. Tons of places to run, bike. You have to be careful. Lots of families. If I were teaching my children to ride, this might be one of the parks to choose because it's got enough space. So this road I'm going on is kind of parallel. You can see a line of trees in front of me. That's the old putt. That's the where the Putnam Trail, which was a railway at one point, ran. That part has really not been open or used much, except for walking in the last few years. And other things. So now we're gonna bear right. We're gonna go under the tunnel. The highway's above. And if you're riding here when it's just rained, this is like the worst place in the world for drainage. This side is usually a little bit better. So you can see there's a residue of water. I'm riding my bike today that has wide tires. So here you can see the beginning. There was a station here. You can see the remnants of it, of the old putt. Excuse me. This is where you normally would enter. You can see up ahead there's see where the people are walking across. That's the entrance to over the Blue Bridge. It's where it sort of starts, and it's closed because they're repaving it. And I don't know what it's supposed to be ready this summer. I have no idea what impact COVID has on that schedule. Now, there's a golf course here and a lake, and I think this is like the golf house. And there's a nice lake. So we're just going to go parallel to all these cars parked. We actually, that's kind of the bike lane, so we want to hop onto that at some point because there are people there. I avoided it, but I'm gonna hop on over here. It's not the greatest condition, but it's not so bad. Bit of a steep hill coming up. We'll stick to our right. You can see the golf course in the distance. There's really only one way to go here until we get to the top of this hill. So, at the top of this hill, if you want to go to Moshlut Parkway, Zoological Society, you make a right. That way to the Bronx Zoo, City Island, and if you want to go to the OCA, we're going this direction. Okay? Okay. Now, the roadway starts off paved. You see the highway right next to us. See an ambulance. Not sure what's there. Don't see that many people in this area. You have to watch out here at branches, have some eye protection, especially if things get very overgrown and nobody is cutting these. Can I slide by? Thank you. Have a good day. So that way is towards Fordham Road, 233rd Street, Jerome Avenue. And this way, see if we can see the sign. This way is Old Croton Aqueduct Trail. And that's what we want. I've often missed this turn. You can see the ground is a little wet. You can definitely make this ride on a, 23 tire, but it will get a little uncomfortable. There you can see it's a little wet. But remember, we're still in New York. So, how many places in New York do you get scenery like this? I'm actually surprised how many people are out here. I've done this multiple times. Never saw a person. Must be the desperation of the plague. Now, there's a couple places you can cut down. Hola. A couple places you can cut down to get to the Putnam Trail. But as I said, the whole thing is fenced off like a wild animal. I did that exploration before, so you can't really get to it. So the trail that we just passed is one of the ones that you can take down and will get you to the putt. This is the result of a couple of days of rain. This is not really graded in a way that, but always has a sort of natural feel to it. What you see we're passing is this was one of the viaduct supports. So remember I said this is the old Croton Aqueduct, and it carried water in New York City for a period of time in the 19th century, and that is one of the massive supports that would transport water. I think people are going to be listening to this going, why does he feel the need to keep talking? I don't know, I've seen some of these bike films. It's just scenery, and I sort of always thought a little running commentary wouldn't be bad. Alright, now, see a challenge is we're both going to want to be on this side in the muck. Hey, you can see we're in 25s. Alright, it's a little ickier, but not bad. I've never found this impassable. Just want to be a little careful. Okay. see a sign here. It says Yonkers Northeast Woods. That's where we're going. And again, I think that path over there will take you still in Van Cortland Park. If you ever ride the OCA, this is what a lot of it looks like, and it's why sort of a hidden gem. That's interesting. I don't know where he's going. They're parallel trails. I know they're parallel trails that take you outside of Van Cortland Park. I thought they were all to the left of me, but must have known something I don't. Now I think this is the border where New York City ends, and we're on the OCA out of Van Cortland Park. We're definitely in Yonkers now. And there are a couple ways to get onto the South County Trailway from here. And I'll detail it out as the choices become clear. If the road's not bad, not sure what stopped. Hopefully that was recorded. As I said, we just crossed out of New York City. We're on the beginning of the OCA, There are parts of it that look like this sort of narrow trail, literally through people's backyards, because it is a right-of-way. This makes it a little bit difficult to find sometimes because people whose houses it goes through don't necessarily want you to ride through the back of their houses. If we come out here, there used to be, I think, these Queen Anne's lace. Oh, it looks like they cut them down. Used to come out here, you could hardly see where you were. So now you have your choice. On a street in Yonkers, and you could ride to the OCA on Alan Shepard Boulevard. I'm going to stay on this. As I said, got the right equipment today. It's a nice day. It didn't rain that much, and it's much prettier than the rest. And the idea is to sort of show people how to get in from Tibbetts Brook Park. So the one thing about riding here is you have to pay attention. Can't take things for granted because this is not really kept up. So there are stones and twigs and things like that. You know, I've actually never gotten a flat on the OCA. So somebody's making sure they're not bottles, things like that. But in general, and here it looks very narrow, but there's room for a bicycle. And you see a lot of the OCA if you're going to ride it. There's McLean Avenue, that'll take you right to Alan Shepard. You just have to sort of see where it starts again. Here it's, you know, directly parallel to where we're crossing the street. Some places it's displaced a block or two. So when you ride the OCA the first time, it's reasonably but not super well marked on Google Maps. Probably better to follow someone who knew what they were doing on Strava. You can also buy a physical map. There used to be a store on near Grand Central. There's a place that sold it, or you could go to, it was Ossining or one of the little towns on the Hudson had a tourist store, visitor center that sold the maps. And I did this before Google Maps, maybe before Google Maps, certainly before it had any of this information. So I have a copy of that original map. Not that much has changed in the subsequent years. Anyway, you can see it's a little bumpy. Now, at some point, we're going to need to make a right turn. It's out for a while. Hi. There are a couple of places that you can turn here. It may take you, it's only about, it's less than a quarter mile to the streets, and I don't know if you could see it on the camera. You need to get one of those head-mounted cameras, I guess, but I'm actually right next to the street, sort of in a trough, and the street is nearby. on a bicycle, it's always a question whether you should warn someone you're coming down. It's not as obvious a decision because, you know, the nice thing about warning someone is they're not surprised when you zoom by them and you don't get a reaction like that. The disadvantage is when you don't warn them, they react much more predictably. They don't see you coming, you zoom by. When you warn somebody, you didn't ring a bell, never really sure what they're going to do. And so it's an added level of complexity. My bell fell off, and so I don't like yelling hey unless it's a car, people. So I'm just explaining that I'm sensitive to these things. I'm not a jerk bicycle rider zooming by pedestrians. Look. You can see whenever you have a choice of these two lanes, you always take the higher one. Invariably it'll be better shape. Okay. Now we're getting somewhere. And we're back on dry land. And you can see a tunnel up ahead. And we want to go through that tunnel. At least theoretically we want to go through that tunnel. Now, the only reason I say theoretically is it's often very wet. So sometimes I go over, you know, up that road and over. Let's see what it looks like today. And even when it hasn't rained, this tunnel is in bad shape. It's got a lot of leaves, and so you don't really know what's there. Yeah, it's pretty, this is pretty treacherous. I guess I would have ridden that. I'm always a little bit hesitant to ride if don't want to have someone do something they're not used to doing. Now, we want to get on that road. The road gets so crappy here. So anywhere you feel like kind of cutting down is good. So to the left is where we're going to get to the South County Trailway. To the right is that continuation of the old Croton Aqueduct. And good morning, good afternoon. And this coming up, you see over here, is the entrance to Tippett's Brook Park, and we're going to go down there. So, I have a guard there. Let's put my mask back up. When I'm not around a lot of people, the mask does come down. Good afternoon.
How are you?
Thank you. Well, so it's a nice park. It's got a lot of facilities and things like that. And the years before they had not finished this part of the South County Trailway, you used to have to ride through the park. You have to get off the Trailway and get back on. So there's a couple of places to get on. And I will show you the preferred location. Cars here, so you have to be concerned. There's a football field there. A little steep, but we're now on the South County Trailway going north. Wait. And here it is, the famous Yonkers Gateway Motel, rooms by the hour. And this concludes our broadcast segment of the day.